Good morning, class 9 students. I welcome you all on this online platform provided by Jagrati Classes. We were discussing in our previous video about tissues and we were dealing with plant tissues. So this is for class 9th and we are doing chapter 6, that is tissues, and in this chapter we have divided our chapter into two different parts. First we will be dealing with plant tissues, which we are continuing now, and then we will see different tissues present in animals. So let's start our discussion, or let's continue our discussion about plant tissues. In plant tissues, in the introductory video I have made a flow chart. That is, in plants you have two different kinds of tissues. One would be meristematic, the next would be simple permanent or permanent tissue. Then these permanent tissues are further divided into two categories, that is simple permanent and complex permanent tissues. We have done the meristematic tissue, we have done it completely, all the meristems we have studied, apical, intercalary and lateral. Then moving on to the next category, that is permanent. Why they are called permanent? I am revising these terms in all my video lectures, so I want that each one of you should now remember the terminologies. Why the term meristematic is used? Because meristematic means continuously dividing cells. Then why the term permanent is used? Because those tissues which have lost the capacity to divide, that is, they are matured. And how these permanent tissues are formed? We have seen that conversion of meristematic tissues, after some time these meristematic tissues lose their division power and in turn they get converted to the mature form, that is permanent tissues. And this process of conversion of meristematic into permanent was called differentiation. Then we saw the two other different processes, that is de-differentiation and re-differentiation also. So now we will be starting with the complex permanent tissues. In the previous class we discussed simple permanent tissues, and in those we discussed three kinds of tissues. We studied about parenchyma. These are the three kinds of simple permanent tissues. Then why they are called simple? Yes, they are simple to study, but complex are also simple to study and learn. These are called as simple permanent because they are made up of a single type of cell. Remember, I am again emphasizing on the term single type or one type of cells. So parenchyma, we dealt with. Parenchyma is made up of circular or spherical shaped cells. These cells have thin cell walls, they have many intercellular spaces, and the major function of parenchyma is, yes, for the storage of food. Then we also dealt with two other kinds of parenchyma, which were chlorenchyma and arenchyma. Arenchyma is present in aquatic plants, and this arenchyma has air cavities which help the plants to float. Chlorenchyma, the parenchyma tissue containing chlorophyll in it, helpful for photosynthesis, is referred as chlorenchyma. The next was collenchyma. These were living cells. Yes, they had some irregularly thickened corners, okay, and they provided flexibility to the plant. So these are responsible. Major function of parenchyma is food storage. Major function of collenchyma is to provide flexibility, that is, you can bend the part of plants. Certain plants can be bended without breaking them off. And then I told you an important question comes in exams frequently: differentiate between chlorenchyma and collenchyma. So please do not get confused, we have already done this. Then the last simple permanent tissue was sclerenchyma. This sclerenchyma is present, as an example, in the husk of coconut. It is present in a fibrous elongated form. The main function of sclerenchyma is to provide mechanical strength or support to plants. And this sclerenchyma, we have missed one thing, I suppose, that this sclerenchyma has deposition of lignin. This lignin is a chemical compound which is present in the walls of sclerenchyma. Hence, this lignin is also known as plant cement. Yes, lignin is called plant cement. So lignin is present in the walls of the cells of sclerenchymatous tissue. and this lignin helps to provide rigidity. It provides rigidity and mechanical strength to the plant. So this was a recap about simple permanent tissues. Now we'll be starting the next, that is complex permanent tissues present in plants. Okay, before starting complex permanent tissue, you also have a small topic which is given in your books, not as a topic but as a paragraph, that is about epidermis. So this is given in the books in a very scattered manner, okay? So I have brought this epidermis as a topic for you. And now what do you mean by epidermis? Epidermis is present in plants. It is similar to our skin, that is the skin present in animals or humans is same. You can call this epidermis to be the skin of plant. In general sense or in very simpler sense, we can say epidermis is the skin of plant. Can you define it more further? Yes, it can be defined as the outermost covering, because you know skin is what? The outermost covering which protects the internal organs from injuries and wounds. So epidermis, you can say that it is the outermost covering present in plants. Now talking about our skin is the same all over our body. But because plants have different structures, that is different organs have different structures, in turn we can classify this epidermis into three different kinds. That is, one would be epidermis present on leaf, that is your leaf epidermis. The next would be the epidermis of your roots. So we can say we have a root epidermis. And the next would be your stem epidermis. So talking about epidermis in a general sense, epidermis is the outermost covering present in plants. And if this outermost covering is present on leaf, you can refer it to as leaf epidermis. If this outermost covering is present along your roots, then it would be called as root epidermis. And if this is present around your stem, then it becomes stem epidermis. So now let's see what is the structural features or what are the importance of this leaf epidermis first. So first one would be your leaf epidermis. So leaf epidermis, you can write it is the outermost covering present on leaf, and it is present on the upward and downward portion, both the portions of your leaf. How can you observe this leaf epidermis? If you take a leaf and try to scrap off a bit from its upper surface, then you will find a thin peel coming out, a transparent, very fine and thin peel you will get. And if you prepare a temporary mount, we have already seen, we know how to prepare temporary mount. So if you observe it under the microscope, then you will see the structure of this leaf epidermis. So when we study the structure of leaf epidermis and observe it under microscope, what do we get is, this leaf epidermis is very thin and transparent film, okay? It is very thin transparent film when you take out it from the surface of your leaf. And when it is observed in the microscope, the cellular structure is, it contains, like this, it contains many epidermal cells. Epidermis is composed of different cells which are called epidermal cells. And then next what is, then you have, in between these cells you have certain bean-shaped or kidney-shaped structures. These are called as stomata. So we have many cells. This is your epidermis. So it contains epidermal cells. And you have these kidney-shaped structures which are known as stomata. And then much air cavities are also present, that is empty spaces. You call it to be vacant air spaces or intercellular spaces present in the cells. So this is what an epidermis looks like. It contains numerous epidermal cells. Then you also have kidney-shaped or bean-shaped structures called stomata, and then you have certain air cavities or air spaces in your epidermis. Now what is the function of this epidermis? So you have to study the function of stomata. Then the stomata is a bean-shaped or kidney-shaped structure. This is the structure of stomata. These two kidney-shaped cells are called guard cells. Then this central pore is known as your stomatal pore. Then you have numerous cells surrounding these guard cells, okay? Many cells are present outside these guard cells, and these cells are in turn called subsidiary cells. So these are called your subsidiary cells, and this completes your structure of stomata. And you should know two different functions which a stomata performs. So the functions performed by stomata, first function is transpiration. What is the process of transpiration? Transpiration is the process by which the plant loses excess water from its leaf through this stomata. Stomata are the tiny pores or holes, okay, present in your leaf epidermis. And the loss of water in form of vapors through stomata is called transpiration. So you can note it down. The loss of water in the form of vapors through stomata is called transpiration. And next function which the stomata performs is of gaseous exchange. So these are the two functions performed by stomata. Gaseous exchange means during the daytime plants require to do the process of photosynthesis for making their food, and for the process of photosynthesis they require carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide would be taken inside the plant through these stomata, and in turn when the plants will do photosynthesis they will make their food, and they will also release oxygen. So this oxygen would be removed out of the plant through this stomata again. So it helps in gaseous exchange, that is exchange between CO2 and O2 gases. So these are the two functions performed by stomata, and this is whole account of your leaf epidermis. Now next we'll talk about this root and stem epidermis. So now the second one is your root epidermis. Root epidermis, outermost covering which would be present around the roots. So this you can write it on your own, that root epidermis is the outermost covering present around the roots. The next point in root epidermis would be this outermost covering also grows or produces some outgrowths. Root epidermis, it produces some outgrowth, that is it extends further, which are generally thread-like. So you can say that this root epidermis produces some thread-like outgrowths, and these outgrowths are called as, or these are known as root hairs. So the extension of root epidermis into thread-like structures are called root hairs, and these roots, so you can also define root hairs in the other manner which I told you just now, that root hairs are extensions, or you can say that these are the thin thread-like extensions of root epidermis. So root hairs are the thin thread-like extensions of root epidermis, and the function of these root hairs It helps to increase the surface area for absorption. It helps in increasing surface area for absorption of water and mineral nutrients from your soil. So this is the function. That is, you have roots, okay? These are the roots of a plant. And then the external covering, that is the root epidermis, further extends and create very thin structures which resemble to the branches of roots. And these branches, these very thin structures are called root hairs. And they serve to increase the surface area for absorption. That is, if root hairs would not be present, this plant would only be able to absorb water molecules present around, limited to this area. But because of the presence of these root hairs, now the plant can also absorb the water molecules and the important useful nutrients present at a far distance. So this is the function of root hair, that it increases the surface area for absorption. And root hairs are nothing but they are the thread-like extensions of your root epidermis. And we can represent root hairs by this. Now coming to the last, which is your stem epidermis. So now comes the stem epidermis. Stem epidermis is again the outermost covering which is present in your stems. But we have some modification here also, that in younger stems, you know that younger stems are quite smooth, okay? So in younger stems, the epidermis which is present is called stem epidermis. We say that stem epidermis is present in younger, or you can say present around young stems. And this is soft. It is soft and smooth. But as after some time the plant matures or the plant grows up, you know that now the stems are no longer smooth or soft and they become very hard. And you know, we say that this is the bark of a plant. Like barks of different plant, that is, you see a wide brown stem, compared to the younger stems are green, they are very soft. If you try to break them, you can easily do that. So these are soft and smooth, and the covering of these younger stem is called stem epidermis. But after some time, when the plant matures, then its stems widens and now it no longer remains soft and green. It converts to a dark colored stem, and this stem is also referred to as bark. So we can say that as the plant matures means grows older, okay? As the plant gets matured enough, then the stem, which was originally younger, that is, which was green and smooth in nature, it develops secondary meristematic tissue. It develops secondary meristematic tissues around the epidermal cells. Okay, around the epidermis which was originally present, a new tissue that is called secondary meristematic tissue gets developed at the outer surface of these epidermal cells. And as a result of development of these tissues, now what do you have? Next is these secondary meristematic, as you know, these are meristematic, so they'll divide continuously and they'll form a group of cells. These secondary meristematic tissue divide continuously and form a group of cells, and the cells so formed are dead in nature. And these dead cells, that is the group of cells formed from secondary meristematic tissues, is called cork, or you can also call it bark in general terms. So if you get a question, what do you mean by cork or bark? Then you can explain it as a whole. That is, we know that in younger stems which are green, soft and smooth, you have your epidermis, which is soft in nature. But as the plant matures, that is, as the plant grows older with time, the stem develops a new tissue called secondary meristematic tissue around these epidermal cells. As a result, the secondary meristematic tissue divides continuously and forms a group of cells, which these cells are dead in nature. These are known as cork or bark. And the function of cork, that is, cork helps to provide mechanical strength to the plant. Okay, these cork cells provide mechanical strength. You can also make a general conclusion that all the cells which are dead in nature, they'll only be used, or they'll usually be used to provide mechanical strength or support to the plant, because they are not living, so they cannot help in carrying out any metabolic process, which is the characteristics of living cells. So in turn, most of the dead cells will help in providing support or mechanical strength to your plants. So this is an account of stem epidermis. Okay. Now next we'll start our complex tissues present in plants. And again, as the name implies, why these are called actually complex permanent tissues. Okay, complex tissue come in the category of your permanent tissue. So complex permanent tissues which have lost the ability to divide, they are mature tissues. Complex means the tissues which are made up of these do not have, first I am defining why do you call it as permanent, because these do not have the ability to divide, so hence they are known as permanent. And also, why they are known as complex then? Because these are made up of more than a single type of cell. That is, they are made up of many types of cells. These do not have the ability to divide and are composed of or made up of more than one type of cell. So these are known as complex permanent tissues, and we have two complex permanent tissues with us. The first one is called xylem and the next one is known as phloem. So these are the two complex permanent tissues found in your plants. And xylem and phloem are combinedly called as, combinedly is, if you want to give a single name to this xylem and phloem as all together, then xylem and phloem are combinedly called conducting tissues. So if you are asked what do you mean by conducting tissues or what is the example of conducting tissues, then you would say that xylem and phloem are your conducting tissues. The next comes that these are also called with a different name, that is your vascular tissues or vascular bundles. Or you can also call them as the transporting tissues. So xylem and phloem are known by a single common name combinedly, and the names are conducting tissues or vascular bundles. So if you are asked what comprise vascular bundles or which tissues are involved, name the tissues which are involved in vascular bundle, then the answer would be xylem and phloem are altogether referred as vascular bundles. Now this xylem tissue, because we have said that these are complex in nature, complex means these are made up of more than one type of cell. So xylem is made up of 4 types of cells and phloem is also made up of 4 types of cells. So the parts of xylem are, that is the 4 different types of cells present in xylem are called, the first one would be tracheids, then comes your vessels, then comes xylem parenchyma, and the last one is your xylem fibers. So these are the 4 different types of cells which comprise xylem. And in the similar manner, phloem is also made up of 4 different kinds of cell or 4 different types of cells. So the 2, that is parenchyma and fibers, are the same for phloem, and the remaining are sieve tubes, and next you have companion cells. So these are the 2 types of cells present in phloem, and the rest is phloem parenchyma, and then you have phloem fibers. So here, except xylem parenchyma, all of these cells are dead in nature. Okay? Only this parenchyma is living. Rest all the cells are dead. Now if we look one by one to the different parts, that is different types of cell. Xylem, this tissue is useful for transporting or conducting water. So we can say that it helps in conduction. Conduction means transportation. It helps in conduction of water and minerals. Minerals, those minerals which are soluble in water. So it helps in conduction or transportation of water and minerals. Then as you know that water comes in the plant from where? Roots are responsible for absorbing water, and roots absorb water from the ground. So you know that the source of water would be roots or the soil. Okay? So flow of water or the conduction of xylem, we say that it is unidirectional. And please understand the concept why it is called unidirectional, because it helps in the conduction of water and minerals. These water and minerals will be absorbed by roots only. So unidirectional means the water and minerals are absorbed by the roots, and now these absorbed water and minerals travel upwards. So the movement is only unidirectional, that is from the ground to top of the plant or apex of the plant. Or you can say the movement is from roots to the aerial parts of plant. Aerial parts means the stem, branches, leaves and flowers which are exposed to the air, or aerial parts which are present above the ground, and root is present below the ground, so it is called the underground part of plant. So unidirectional means the flow of water is from roots to aerial parts, or you can also call it that flow of water is from downside to upside. And yes, it also occurs sideways. That is, if we consider a plant, these would be the roots, these would be the different branches, and in turn we have leaves, fruits and flowers on them. So the conduction of water or transport of water would be from these roots. So water would be absorbed by the roots, and then the flow of water would be upwards and sideways. But the flow is in the same direction. This water is not being transported downside. In turn, we call this flow to be unidirectional. Then the next point here would be that you are also given a diagram of xylem and phloem and its different components, that is tracheids and vessels. So what are the functions of tracheids and vessels? Tracheids and vessels are the tubular structures, okay? And these help in conduction of water. These are similar, like if I try to draw a tracheid here, similar to the diagram given in your books. Then the structure of tracheids in this form, and you have pits in these tracheids. And the structure of vessel, that vessel is somewhat larger. This is tracheid, these are the vessels. So these vessels are somewhat larger, or you can say these are somewhat wider, okay? This you have to be vessels, and these are your tracheids. So these are tubular structures, they may be thin, they may be somewhat wider, and they have the function, are tubular structures which help in transport of water. Then next you have what? Xylem parenchyma. And here also we know that major function of parenchyma is storage of food. So here also it helps as a storehouse of food or storehouse of minerals. And next, the xylem fibers, these are again the dead cells. These are made up of dead cells, and so their function would be to provide mechanical strength. So this is an account of xylem what you have with you. Remember, it helps in the conduction of water and the flow is unidirectional. Then the diagrams and the functions of each structure, that is their structural features, their shape and their function. Now at last we will be doing phloem, and that would complete our today's class. Phloem, this is the conducting tissue which helps in transport of food. Okay, how to remember this? The xylem is responsible for water and phloem for food. Both these sounds, the letters are not same, but the sound, that is phloem has a f sound, and food also starts with the letter f in Hindi. So phloem is responsible for the transport of food and xylem would be responsible for transport or conduction of water. Then the next important point, that phloem has a bidirectional, or you can say a multi-directional flow. As I talked about xylem, that it has a unidirectional flow from the roots to the higher aerial parts. Here, what do we have? We have to transfer food. And food is made in what? Food is present in the leaves. You all know leaves undergo the process of photosynthesis and it synthesizes the food. So next what we have, we'll have different types of leaf and branches, okay? Then this would be your stem and these would be the roots. This food which is synthesized in the leaves need to be transported to all different parts, because every part of the plant require food in order to obtain energy and do the required functions. So the food which is synthesized here, it would be transported sideways, then it would be transported downwards to the stems and to the roots, and in turn it would also be transported to the above branches. So you can say that it has the bidirectional. Why? Because the food synthesized is moving upwards and downwards. Bidirectional means the food is moving in both directions, that is upside and downside. And the more appropriate term would be multi-directional, because this food is moving in every possible direction we have. It is moving downwards, it is moving to other branches, to the top parts. So we can say that the flow is multi-directional. And at last we'll discuss the different components, that is phloem parenchyma. The function of phloem parenchyma would be food storage, as we have the general function of parenchyma. And this phloem parenchyma consists of living cells. Then next, you are not given in detail about the functions of sieve tubes and companion cells, but you can say the phloem fibers which are present, these are responsible, these are the dead cells, and in turn they give structural rigidity and mechanical support to your plant. So these are a count of xylem and phloem that were your complex permanent tissues. So you should know why these are called complex, why these are called permanent tissues, and then we discussed each and everything included in your syllabus in detail. Remember that phloem is responsible for the transport of food, and this transport is bidirectional or multidirectional in nature, while the transport done by xylem, Xylem is responsible for transport of water and minerals, and this transport is always unidirectional in nature, as I explained you with the help of a rough diagram. So in today's class we have completed half of our chapter, that is about plant tissues, and from the next video we will be starting our animal tissues, that is different types of tissues present in plants. So till then, if you have any sort of doubt, you can ask us. Thank you for joining the class today. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.